In Far Cry 5, you take on the role of a generic cop, fighting for his life in a generic location in rural America. As the protagonist, you become embroiled in a generic plot involving a religious cult in Montana. After a generic inciting incident, you are thrust into an all-out conflict in an expansive, generic open world, where you set about liberating in-game microtransaction vendors in an attempt to undermine the generic, sinister villains by converting their territorial domain into one giant fucking open-air digital in-game microtransaction store. Welcome to Far Cry 5. Battle for the in-game vendors. Far Cry 5 is the latest instalment in the now iconic first-person shooter, action-adventure, open-world series from Ubisoft, or however the fuck you want to classify it. Let's not overthink this. This is a Far Cry sequel from Ubisoft. It's a product designed to facilitate lots of violence and explosions for between 30 and 100 hours, whilst extracting as much cash from you as possible by way of DLCs and pedo vendors. It's not designed to change the world. It's designed to be a bit of low attention span fun for a couple of weeks. This isn't fucking Das Kapital. It's the National fucking Enquirer. It's supposed to keep you entertained whilst you wait for a proper game to be released. And this, it does reasonably well, with some significant strings attached. The story is at best described as generic. Did you see that one coming? You play a cop who gets fucked up in Hope County, Montana, when an entirely implausible scenario plays out where a fanatical religious cult takes over the place using violence, religion, and a fictional sci-fi drug, which I have entirely failed to synthesize in my kitchen. They fuck you up. They fuck your cop buddies up, and now it's your job to make the world right again, by killing people and blowing shit up. It's about as subtle as trying to fix a smartphone with a fucking club hammer. It's fucking ridiculous. But smashing stuff up is fun. Let's keep it real here. The bliss drug makes for some fun visuals, but it's about as realistic as something you would see in an anti-drug propaganda film. Drugs don't work like bliss in real life. Certainly not the ones I've tried. But that's a 6-hour video series right there. I don't have time to list all the plot holes here, but the biggest and most obvious one is this. If the entire fucking population of Hope County are such gullible twats, why do anything about the situation at all? Personally, I just say, fuck it. Go to the pub and let them crack on with it. I suppose the only possible reason to act is that there are at least some cool people trapped there who are worth saving. Said cool people in the story are generally paranoid, survivalist, prepper types who stockpile weapons, supplies and explosives in anticipation of the inevitable Armageddon/zombie apocalypse. Naturally, I was able to relate to this kind of mindset and was completely in my element. I'm the kind of guy who feels emotionally vulnerable if I don't have at least 2 kilograms of propane, 4 litres of biofuel, a month's supply of ship's rations, and at least 6 spare NBC gas mask filters in the house. Of course I loved the prepper themes in the game. Christ, you'd have to be weird not to. Personally, I fucking love rednecks and hillbillies. They are largely disrespected, underappreciated, and unsympathetically portrayed in popular fiction. Here is what people think rednecks are like. This is what rednecks are really like. Here's a redneck making a knife outside his trailer. When the apocalypse comes, do you want to be friends with business consultants and macrobiotic dietitians? Or do you want to be friends with someone that can catch and cook a deer for breakfast and then make an improvised weapon out of an old wood file. Stop stereotyping rednecks for fuck's sake. Hashtag redneck lives matter. Actually, I just checked that out and it's pretty fucking scary, but you get my general point here. So how does Far Cry 5 actually play as a video game? In a nutshell, the weapons are better than Far Cry 3, the narrative and style is far worse than Far Cry Blood Dragon, and this game had much more appeal than Far Cry Primal. Overall, this game surprised me. I predicted that Far Cry 5 would be a bad game with a bad story, completely drenched in the foul stink of the toxic dysentery of microtransactions. I was completely wrong. In fact, Far Cry 5 is an average game with an average story, completely drenched in the foul stink of the toxic dysentery of microtransactions. I guess playing Far Cry 5 could be compared to getting a 6 out of 10 handjob whilst being forced to drink a pint of shit slurry scooped out of a chemical toilet. But more of the microtransactions later. For anyone familiar with the Far Cry franchise, the game will be well trodden ground. It's a fairly slick open world shooter where you run around clearing locations, doing main quests, side quests, but mostly killing generic, predictable NPC clones for the sheer pleasure of murdering folk. And most of the sense of pride and accomplishment comes from the ultra-violence and often accidental ways in which you violently incinerate, explode and annihilate the soulless enemies, which you are always required to exterminate because reasons. You have the choice of either using stealth or violence when assaulting strongholds and locations. But this is really a bit of a lie, isn't it? You basically choose between doing it slowly or quickly. Sure, it's super helpful to occasionally take out the odd sniper first, but often just sprinting in with a fucking shotgun and camping a room will suffice. The dumbass AI will reliably walk all the enemies round the corner into your kill zone one by one, with the predictability of a Far Cry game. The evolution of the franchise is a bit of a give and take affair. There are some interesting, if slightly confusing mechanics for recruiting in-game NPCs as robotic squad members and sidekicks that help you fight. The Guns for Hire and the Fangs for Hire feature allows you to unlock, recruit and perk enhance various NPC sidekicks to help you in your adventures. Thus far, they've proven to be as dumb as a box of fucking rocks. Apparently later on I'll get some awesome dude who will fucking bomb enemies from the air and some wicked chick who'll take me everywhere in her chopper. But thus far, I only seem to be able to find some fucking idiot who fires rockets at people standing next to me, and this other really annoying cunt that shoots all the wild animals I'm trying to kill with fire for the community challenge. I'm guessing they get better with experience, perks, and a bit of clever selection. I hope to fuck they do at least. You can now jump into planes and helicopters and fly them, which is nice. I figured that now they've shit-canned the radio tower mechanic, they needed a new means for the player to fully explore the wingsuit and parachute gameplay, and this works a lot better than just placing all of the pedo vendors in really, really high locations. As predicted, the new vehicles, in fact all the vehicles, provide another mechanism for piggybacking microtransactions into the game, which was as predictable as Anthem having loot crates. There are standard challenges in-game to unlock shit, and the addition of timed community challenges where players do vaguely annoying tasks to win prizes. Nothing groundbreaking, but at least it gives you stuff to think about whilst you're killing red shirt NPCs, and free shit is always welcome. The new fishing minigame they've introduced is pointless, stupid, and loads of fun. I'm sure I will probably spend at least 1 or 2 nights completely skull-fucked just fishing quietly by the side of a lake. It looks like a great way to relax. The arcade mode looks pretty interesting too. I haven't fully explored it, but you can basically grind it for extra progression and money, build maps yourself, play other people's maps, and generally looks like something that could take on a life of its own, just like the user-generated content in other games. I'll reserve judgment until I see how it pans out, but so far, so interesting. And they haven't monetized it yet, so at least that's something. The perk system is, for want of a more inspiring way to put it, there. You click on a button and it gives you a thing. It's not very good, well considered, or even progressive. But it's there, I guess. I don't think anyone will be doing any build videos, let's just put it that way. Crafting has been reduced to a bit of nonsense. So much so, in fact, that I barely look at it. Christ, I barely notice half the shit I'm looting if it's not cash or ammo, but maybe I'll learn to give a fuck late game. But I doubt it. The roads are frankly fucking idiotic early game. You could be standing by an empty road listening to the fucking crickets. But the second you jump in a car and start driving, enemies just seem to magically flock to your position and you're suddenly in the middle of Mad Max Fury fucking road with fucking bullets pounding your car from every direction. Walk up the same road and it's all crickets and fucking sunshine. It just doesn't make sense. Maybe this will get patched out, but for now I'm mostly running everywhere to avoid the fucking surreal gangbanging I get the second I jump in a vehicle and try and fucking drive anywhere. My main gripe about the immersion in this game is the bullet sponge wild animals. Practically indestructible turkeys. Get a fucking grip, lads. Okay, wolverines are tough, but they are not 2 ACR mag dumps tough. Bears are fucking robust as hell, but someone once killed a bear with a fucking camping knife. I'm pretty sure 5 well-placed 7.62 NATO rounds will do it just as well. I'm not convinced I need to hose the cunt down with a light machine gun for 5 minutes before it kills over. The default health of the wild animals early game is just a bit silly. I couldn't shake the feeling that somehow the wild animals were designed with such high resilience so as to soak off your ammo and leave you cash poor. I reckon this is a remnant of some long abandoned pre-alpha mechanic where they were going to try and nudge you towards spending real life money on ammo reloads from the vendor. Sorry, but the health pools of some of the wildlife is just unrealistic and crossed the line between fun and fucking stupid. The turkeys are just fucking childish and spoil the feeling of the adventure for me. As for the crazy Christian messianic drug cult shit and the bliss, it made me want to buy a waistcoat, get high and start a religious cult of my own. I am fucking on side with that aspect of the storyline. I found the religious crazy people strangely compelling. Some of the cutscenes were fucking brilliantly creepy and the portrayal of certain cult members thoroughly enjoyable. I mean, Vaz from Far Cry 3 was a great nemesis, but let's be honest, he's a bit overrated. Nearly every fucking thing that chump said was a snippet of dialogue stolen from some other random movie psycho. My inner Jim Jones really liked the bad guys in Far Cry 5 because as crazy as they seemed, that kind of crazy really exists in the world. So let's briefly touch on the Polygon bullshit, SJW bullshit and people complaining about missed opportunities bullshit. The TLDR on the modern world we live in is this. However you fucking handle the issues of race, gender, sexuality and social justice in modern video games, someone, somewhere, will get fucking triggered. And if you don't, some news agency will pretend to get fucking triggered just to please their target audience. Kingdom Come Deliverance by Warhorse Studios sets a video game in Bohemia in 1403 and with the help of a fucking team of historians create a game that is near as damn it 100% socially, culturally and historically accurate. What happens? They get accused of whitewashing history, being racist and being sexist because there wasn't a 50-50 split of male and female knights and the population of a small town in the Middle Ages wasn't falsely portrayed with the same degree of ethnic diversity as the bridge of the fucking USS Enterprise. Meanwhile, Battlefield 1 includes black soldiers and a female Bedouin character, and they are attacked for blackwashing World War I and being de facto ignorant racists by not adequately dealing with the endemic racism and sexism of World War I, while simultaneously being attacked for not being able to play a female character in multiplayer. Put simply, however you try and deal with these issues in video games at the moment, you will get attacked. Now Far Cry 5 comes out, it's set in America, has some black NPCs, a black preacher, a religious cult, and people own guns, and it's coming under fire for just about fucking everything. Once again, Polygon, the world leaders in latte enemas and gibbering about nonsense, have reared their ugly hipster heads and started bitching again. They're whining that the game fails to address various and sundry ideological issues concerning contemporary American domestic politics. They are talking shite, basically. They see the game as replete in missed opportunities because they have their fucking agenda. Far Cry 5 does not advance it, therefore it's the work of fucking ignorant cavemen. I've seen people attack this game for promoting gun violence, not addressing gun violence, promoting the narrative of the white saviour, having black NPCs, not having enough black NPCs. Fuck, I've seen someone complain that the hero of the story isn't a Native American Indian. I don't see why people can be getting upset about this game because of what it hasn't done. People are getting upset about this game because of issues it never set out to deal with. It's a game where you shoot people and blow shit up. Far Cry 5 never claimed to be a political analysis of Trump's America or explore narratives of gun violence and the Second Amendment. It doesn't say anywhere on the box that it would evaluate the fucking power inequality between indigenous peoples and the white population of Montana. It's a fucking video game with a smiley face shovel, rocket launchers and indestructible fucking turkeys. I think some people need to calm the fuck down, and Polygon needs to stop being such pretentious cunts. On the topic of cunts, let's talk about money and the microtransactions. In one of the most ironic, self-depreciating jokes in recent times, Ubisoft self-referenced the cliche of unlocking radio masts in Far Cry as the main way to progress across the map. They then joke with the player that there will be less of that shit in Far Cry 5. Then, in what can only be described as a sick joke, and the joke is definitely on us, they replaced it with a mechanic where we go around the map unlocking in-game microtransaction locations. I shit you not. All the key location hubs are fucking in-game microtransaction vendors. You do quests that unlock more vendors. Some locations have multiple vendors. It's in-game vendor-based progression. Every last motherfucker and location in the game where you can go to restock your ammo and supplies on demand is also a fucking in-game microtransaction vendor. Apparently it's not pay to win and the microtransactions don't affect gameplay. Well, I bought 30 quid's worth of silver bars to test this and went and bought a fucking massive LMG, a 40 mic noob tube, an AK-47 and the best sniper rifle in the game. Looks a little pay to fucking win to me. Apparently you can get most of the best weapons fairly early on in the game from other means. But let's just say, slapping some fucking cash on the problem right off the bat certainly didn't hurt. I wouldn't say you need to spend money to do well. But does it give you an advantage? Of course it fucking does. You can just fire up the game, drop some cash and get a leg up with the guns and the weapons right from the start. Will it make a difference late game? Probably not. Will it make a difference early game? Yeah, I reckon it will. Some people will naturally bleat on about it being mostly cosmetic items, but that's not really the point. I think the issue here is far more sinister than the contents of the shops. Many reviewers have flippantly stated that the microtransactions barely impact on the game, or you barely notice the in-game paid content. Fucking liars. Are they fucking blind? Barely fucking impact on the player experience. Really? I mean, fucking really? You can't fucking avoid them in fuck's name. They are everywhere you go. They are marked on the map. Icons flash above the NPCs' heads. There are pedo vendors in every base and every fucking location. There are pedo vendors walking around the environment. There's a fucking pedo vendor in the cunting menu options. The open world of Far Cry 5 is like being in a giant fucking digital shop. It's a giant fucking open-air digital mall. They knew they were being dirty bastards about this because they did a bait and switch on the reviewers. All the early access copies of the game shipped to sympathetic reviewers had the microtransactions toned down or turned off. Once the reviews were out, the game launched and fucking bang! The whole fucking game is a microtransactional jizzgasm in the customer's face. We should always be suspicious of early access reviews anyway, because the main condition of pre-launch access to games is that you are a compliant on-side reviewer. Ubisoft has in fact been busted previously trying to leverage a positive review from a journalist as a condition of them receiving a pre-launch copy of a game. Now with live games, we have yet another reason to be suspicious. They can change the game after the reviews are published, hiding their dirty shit in order to boost launch day sales. Ubisoft, like many publishers, like to justify microtransactions, pedo caches and loot crates by saying, "But the price of games hasn't gone up since 1979. Well, this game is 50 fucking quid, with the DLC being another 27 quid on top. So basically, that's a big fat lie. To experience the whole game, it's about 80 fucking quid. You would think they would chill on microtransactions then. Not a fucking chance. The whole argument of, we have to be dicks because Vivendi is trying to take over the company, that has now gone away. It's over. So I guess logic would dictate we're going to see less in-game microtransactions, loot crates and pedo caches from Ubisoft in the future. I'm obviously saying this ironically. Ubisoft is making history here, and it seems to have slipped under everyone's radar. They have released a AAA game where you can't even go to the ammo vendor without going via an in-game microtransaction store. Upgrading your character's equipment takes place in an in-game microtransaction store. You progress the fucking game by unlocking in-game microtransaction stores. Microtransaction stores are now being fused and meshed seamlessly into the core mechanics of the game. Even if you don't intend on spending a penny, the in-game items for real money are in your face all the fucking time. And it's annoying as fuck, and certainly spoiled my experience and immersion for this game. Ubisoft is blatantly trying to psychologically acclimatise us to a future where the line between in-game loot and microtransactions is entirely blurred, where every choice to refill ammo or buy a new gun or weapon mod is deliberately hazy, and there is very little obvious distinction between microtransactions with real money and in-game transactions with in-game currency. The currency cash line is being intentionally disintegrated. They are pushing us into positions where we get used to this shit because they want a world where players have to decide, do I buy that gun for money or that gun for in-game currency? Like that is normal. Like that is not an actual consumer purchase. Like it's just part of in-game mechanics. And we can worry about it later when our bank statement arrives at the end of the month. when we realised we spent $50 on some shitty vehicle skins and ammo refills when we were playing late one night. The implementation of microtransactions in this game is fucked up. It's horrible. Ubisoft now effectively make games where every aspect of the player experience is permeated by real-life cash economic manipulation. This is genuinely sinister and despicable, and if you don't agree, you are either an idiot or on the fucking payroll. Perhaps some combination of both. Since they're acting like fucking Nazis, this brings us neatly on to the gunplay and weapon modelling in Far Cry 5. Once again, Ubisoft has demonstrated its extremely uncomfortable and creepy obsession with World War II Nazi guns. Not wanting to disappoint the fully paid up tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy theorists, of which I consider myself a founding member, Far Cry 5 contains an MP40 SMG, best known as the World War II Nazi Schmeiser submachine gun. Bizarrely, and sadly, this was actually one of the high points of the in-game arsenal. Overall, I felt the selection of guns was interesting, but too restricted. Including brush guns was very fucking cool, but overall it was a bit low effort. Not enough guns, not enough interesting guns, not enough gun modification. In fact, gun modification was best summed up this way. Most guns at best had one type of magazine upgrade, two types of muzzle upgrade, and some sights. But they all had a fuck ton of cosmetic skins that you could pay for with real life money. That perfectly sums up the low effort performance on the gunplay in this game. I think the game suffered because people who should have been working on weapon design were working on making fancy skins to sell. So, fuck you very much for that. The ACR, well, ARC for copyright reasons I guess, which is an AR family weapon firing 5.56 NATO, was way too weak in my humble opinion. I'm sorry, but it just felt like someone read .223 caliber and confused that with .22 caliber long rifle. 223 is fucking 5.56 NATO, you fucktards. It's not a plinking round. Hire a weaponsmith. The AK-47, by comparison, was fucking lethal. The brush guns were actually fun and respectfully powerful. Honestly, most of the weapons left me a bit cold. You know, they're there, they do the job, but nothing excited me very much. It wasn't like in, say, Battlefield when you pick up an M60 for the first time and fire it down a corridor on hardcore mode and find yourself shouting out loud, "Holy fuck!" The guns were kind of a bit bland. There are a few guns that are vastly better and unbalanced, and the rest are basically redundant. If they had spent a fraction of the time on weapon balancing that they'd spent on fucking poxy weapon skins, I think the situation would have been less bleak. I am, however, going to assume that the game has lots more guns coming, but they are paywalled behind DLC. This opinion is supported by the fact the Chris Vector SMG, which shipped with the game by accident it would appear, has been patched out of the game. This indicates to me at least that there are weapons in this game with the files in position which are being held there, hidden for the time being. One quick note on combat and the UI. The system where looting is the same button as swap weapon with the one on the ground is such a fucky system. So many times I've gone to loot a body during combat, rushed over to it, only to swap my main weapon for a fucking paddle or some shit. Those two functions should be on separate controls in fuck's name. Interact should not map across the entire fucking game. When NPCs die, they drop their gun. Therefore, guns on the ground are generally on or near the bodies you're trying to loot. Therefore, it's highly likely when you do go and loot, you can accidentally swap weapons with the gun on or by the body. It's stupid and annoying. My last thought on the weapons in this game is, I've said it before and I will keep saying it until they implement it, Ubisoft needs to do what other game companies do, and it needs to start hiring professional weapons experts to help in the development process with video games with fucking weapons in them. It's a no-brainer, and it's considered an industry standard. As a footnote to the weapon design in this game, the individual weapon descriptions, which are there just for flavour, well, some of those are simply fucking hysterical. Well played indeed. So let's talk about sound, soundscaping and atmosphere. The sound in Far Cry 5 is respectable and uninspiring. The atmospheric noise of rustling undergrowth, insects and birds drifting through the woods was great, but expected, to be honest. The weapon noises are fine. It's a video game released in 2018 where the things in the game have sounds. That's pretty much fucking it. Nothing to write home about. No awards being won here today. Please move along. The two areas that I did like were the atmospheric effects surrounding the drug Bliss and the choice of country music. I liked the sublime country music in this game, both ironically and literally. I have fucking banjo music as my theme tune, for fuck's sake. Of course I like the fucking music in this game. It feels like coming home. On a technical note, the surround sound sometimes seemed a bit off. Like sometimes sounds that should have been coming from in front or positionally on top of the player came from the side of me or behind. It's like sometimes the game doesn't know whether I've got full surround sound or just two desktop speakers. Sometimes I'd be running through the brush and end up looking behind me thinking I was being followed, when in fact it was just the noise I was making, somehow coming from behind me, like I'd broken the fucking sound barrier or something, and the noise was taking a fraction of a second to catch up with me. In a nutshell, there was some technical flaws with the positional calibration of the 5.1 surround sound, but overall, the sound was professionally uninspiring. Not much is really demanded of the sound design in Far Cry 5, and they deliver it in spades. So what about the boring technical bod stuff? Overall, it seems very well optimised. Like most Far Cry games, it seems to pitch low on the system requirements, and I won't be cooking any muffins on top of my water cooler this week. My rig ain't that great, but it easily surpassed the recommended requirements. Forget the minimum requirements. This game will cane it on a GTX 970 for fuck's sake. It's worth noting that this is a live game. So there's a long wait to log in every time you launch the game. The loading screens when you fast travel or move between scenes are also Division level tiresome. The file sizes and patch sizes also seem fairly bloated. Given how generic and procedurally generated some of the terrain appears, I'm not sure the files need to be quite that fucking big. But I'm not a programmer, what do I know? When the game's actually running, it works very smoothly. But after the first day, it crashed and stopped launching, resulting in me having to verify all the files. Then it forced me to download some files before launch, which it wouldn't download. The game got stuck in a loop of downloading a patch, failing on completion, demanding I download it again. This turned into a 2-hour fuck around, with me posting on the technical support forum. Whilst the advice I got was generic, a little bit retarded, copy and paste and wrong, it was almost instantaneous at least. I'll give the CMs credit for that. They were on the fucking case. It didn't actually help, and I had to figure it out myself, but at least it felt like someone was being paid to sit on the forums, try their best to help, and do a sad face on demand. Overall, glitches and problems aside, when it fucking runs, it runs well, and you won't need a beastly rig to make it run smoothly. It is also significantly noteworthy that Ubisoft shipped this game with easy anti-cheat built into the game. And frankly, about fucking time. I've not actually worked with EAC, so I can't attest to its effectiveness, but Ubisoft is learning to ship games with anti-cheat in place from launch. That has got to count for something. Far Cry 5 is what it is, really. It's a fairly typical continuation of a well-known franchise, where you get to blow shit up and kill nutters in slightly enhanced and improved ways. Unlike most people, I actually like the new charismatic religious crazies as enemies, and as ridiculous as it was, the plot was just about as coherent as it needed to be. And let's face it, it didn't need to be very coherent. It's fucking Far Cry, not fucking Dostoevsky. If I have to pick fault with this game, I would focus on two things. It is, let's face it, yet another generic, slightly overpriced Far Cry title, and it's a little bland. Secondly, and much more importantly, the fucking sinister in-game microtransaction vendors permeate this game like fucking pubic lice in a brothel. The game literally just facilitates in-game transactions at every fucking turn. When you can't even go and buy ammo without going to a microtransaction store, then that is just a sad day for video games. Is it fun? Absolutely. Is it worth paying 80 quid for the full game? No fucking chance. Are the microtransactions a problem? Fucking right they are. This entire game is an in-game purchase delivery mechanism. It's the next stage in turning video games into fucking digital storefronts, and you can bet your fucking arse they considered making ammo and restocking a paid microtransaction too, but they got talked out of it. Dark days indeed. But for now, good luck and happy hunting.